Welcome to the True That Show, a show about lifepreneurship presented with wit, humor, and banter by Deborah Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. A lifepreneur is someone who's living life the way an entrepreneur runs their business. All in. Lifepreneurs are rock stars. Lifepreneurs are people who are brave, who risk, who live full on, who think out of the box, who win this thing called life. Lifepreneurs are around us every day. They are everyday heroes. Join Deborah and Caroline, these two stage-walking women who tell it like it is. You'll learn from the most incredible lifepreneurs who will inspire you to be the best version of you. Now here are your hosts.
Welcome back, guys. Happy to have you here again this week. Hi, Deborah.
Hey, Caroline.
How are you?
I'm good. How's that cantaloupe going?
My cantaloupe is going really well. It's now 39 outside, 29 in my house. So if my hair puffs up as we go in the interview, people, that's what happens when there's a lot of humidity. So that is what it is. So if you're on the podcast, good for you. You're not seeing my hair. So today we have such an amazing guest, and I feel absolutely honored and privileged to have someone so knowledgeable. But I also want to say, when I call Deb the health freak, well, she is making her way slowly but surely into bringing this into the podcast, like one bit at a time, and then eventually will be an entire natural health and wellness show. No, just joking, because I'm always going to be there. So that's not going to happen. We will always have the counterpart. But I learned a word with Deb when I met her, and it's Ayurveda. First of all, really not easy to say for a French Canadian girl. Second of all, probably for the first 4 years when she was talking about it, I was just hearing like blah, blah. Like I was just hearing that word, not being able to say it or understand it. So I've started paying attention really, probably in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's actually a very fascinating science. But today we found someone who has been in it longer than Deb. I know, doesn't sound real, people, but it is. We did find that one person that has been in longer than Deb. So Deb, why don't you talk about our special guest a little, and what is Ayurveda for you?
Oh, right. So if you don't know, and you've never been on to our presentation before, that's Caroline's dig at my age. And I think the reason why she never really heard the word Ayurveda, because she had a huge fear about me putting it together with her not being allowed to eat sugar anymore. And if you know Caroline, if you go near her sugar or popcorn, she has no tolerance for listening to what you have to say. So I think she correlated that if she had to adapt Ayurveda, she was going to have to change her whole life, which is very interesting, right? Because Ayurveda is such, I call it like, it's not a sneaky medicine, but you start to love it more and more and more, and start to adapt and learn, and it starts to become who you are. I think like most things that you learn at first, it's interesting and informative. And then it's almost like you digest it, which is really interesting, because I'm sure Jaisri is going to talk about the power of digestion, because for me, Ayurveda has been a lot around that. But, the discovery into holistic health for me, I was really fortunate, because when I started to learn massage and aromatherapy, it just so happened that my aromatherapy teacher was also an Ayurvedic practitioner. And when you know about Ayurveda, you can't help but introduce it into other modalities. So when I took chakra balancing with her, there was conversations of Ayurveda. When I took aromatherapy, there was conversations of Ayurveda. I mean, she wrote a book on Ayurveda and aromatherapy. So it seeped into my learning early on. So I didn't have time like Caroline to choose when I was going to have it come into my life. But it's been a game changer for so many things. And it's interesting. I went to UBC, I'm from Vancouver, and I took a course on Chinese medicine. And it was amazing. And I learned many things. And I learned Chinese medicine, but I resonated to Ayurveda. And the first time I got introduced to Ayurveda, it was like my soul drank it. And I was like, yay, I'm home. It's kind of like when I landed in Ireland for the first time, I'm like, wow, this really feels like home. So I'm going to not talk as much about Ayurveda as I am about Jaisri, because, there are masters all over. We study masters, we listen to masters. People have different words around masters or teachers or influencers, right? We hear the word influencer all the time. They're an Instagram influencer, they're a stage influencer, right? It's people that host a body of knowledge way beyond your knowledge, right? That's who I personally would grant that title to, like a master, a guru. Some people call them shaman in their own work, right? And I think it's these people that dedicate their life to understanding, whether it's health or whether it's social media or what have you. So I think it's a title that now gets thrown around a little too early. I think you need to earn your wings. And this woman has earned her wings and just has a love for this knowledge. And I had the blessing of being able to spend 6 days in her home. And I remember the preparation. It was the most incredible experience for me, because I spent 6 days getting treatment, her giving me the food for my dosha, getting consultation, having a Shirodara, which, oh my gosh, a Shirodara oil on your third eye. And when I was telling people I was doing that, they're like, oh, look at you go. They're like, you're going away for 6 days. I'm like, I'm so excited. I've been waiting because I wanted to get this treatment done, but I couldn't because I was nursing and there's all these criterias. And they're like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to Surrey. Now, if you live in Vancouver, I was talking about this experience like it was like in the deep heart of, India or what have you. I was like so excited. They're like, oh, you're going to go spend 6 days with someone's house in Surrey and you're not allowed to talk to anybody and you got to drink oil before you go and you're that excited? They're like, let me know how that works out for you. But anyways, it was an experience that I have never yet to forget. And so with that, I want to introduce everybody, if you do not know who this woman is already, to Jaisri Lambert. She's been a critical pivot for all of us in terms of Western to Eastern medicine. And Jaisri, welcome so much to the show. Thank you for being with us today.
I'm delighted to be with you both, Carolyn, and yourself, Deborah. It's an honor. Thank you.
Welcome. So I know that our listeners by nature have maybe never heard of Ayurveda, have glanced at it. Some may have some great experience in it. If you could share with us a little bit about what Ayurveda is and how did you find it or how did it find you?
Beautiful. Ayurveda is the world's oldest holistic medical science. So truly it is inclusive of all human experiences, body, mind, and consciousness. So it is an all-inclusive science, not a parallel science, but rather an original science. And the medical scriptures of Ayurveda talk about the deities that were formed in the heavens and then conveyed the knowledge of Ayurveda to certain humans that came to the planet Earth later with human development. And that this art and science was conceived in order to sustain humanity, especially during suffering. So if there are symptoms, discomforts, disquiets, imbalances, then Ayurveda has the theories and the practices for rebalancing. Now, in terms of my own health, yes, I was born a Westerner, grew up in Vancouver here, so very typical Western education, and had migraine headaches. So migraine means that all my systems were a mess. This was early on, age 17, 18, 19. This was not a later developed disease. This was a very early onset disease. So my nervous system, endocrine system, structural system, digestive system, all channels really were a product of the Western lifestyle and teachings. And, I tried to do my best. Organic yogurt mixed with fresh organic blueberries with organic honey, and got sick as a dog because wrong combination, wrong food choices, and persisting pain and dysfunction. So once coming to Ayurveda, which was first through meditation, first of all, I was desperate for peace of mind in my early 20s. And by the age of 30, I through good fortune, became initiated to meditation path. And that led me through the meditation vocabulary to Ayurveda, this holistic medical science, which I believe is, even though the most ancient, is still the most relevant today.
That's the most.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, sir.
I was going to say that's crazy. And, let me ask you one thing, and I'm going to tie it up to something else. But for those of you who can't see Jaisri, she looks amazing. And how old are you? I asked her permission to ask first. And she said, okay.
No, I don't mind at all. Numbers are facts, and I'm interested in facts. And 73.
So that's, I want to point this out because you look super good and you look healthy and you look peaceful, which is not necessarily what the majority of people look around that age, because quite often, anyway, I'm not going to go into that subject, but it also means that you discovered, like you're talking about meditation, you're talking about going at the root of how you were feeling, you're talking about, wanting to find peace, but that's basically 40, 50 years ago. So it was not necessarily popular avenue, let's say. So you were also a pioneer in this industry, right?
Somehow I was open in my seeking for health solutions. I had tried the Western medical pills. I had watched my mother with migraines take the pills with no improvement, just worsening year after year. And I had tried naturopathy as well and given advice that I wasn't inclined to follow. And so finally, yes, through the grace of God, I have to say, I didn't decide really, but somehow because of being so sincere and so desperate for my health, that's how I came to it and began first of all with body work. Because I came to Polarity Therapy, which is a body work based in the chakra science, meridian science, trigger point science. So I was very, very interested in that. And I already was working in the body work field. So I already had developed a certain sensitivity in the fingertips and observation. And so coming to meet my teacher, Dr. Laud, in 1988, in Victoria, British Columbia, he came there for teaching and I was asked to come and pick him up and help him. And so I was delighted to do it. Now he recognized me on the first meeting, but I was not evolved sufficiently to be able to recognize him. And it took me some years of study before, realizing what was his importance in my life. And truly he has made my professional life.
Isn't that interesting? I think that, so Jaisri, again, I know not everybody can see you, but when they do, because we hope that this information leads people to meeting with you and having experience with you, they'll be able to see, honestly, I think what Caroline describes best is your vibrancy, right? And, I always say that sometimes, the student's ready when the teacher appears, and sometimes the teacher's ready when the student appears, because many times students push you to go and explore. They come with a disease you haven't seen before or heard of. And when I was asking about, how did you find Ayurveda, or really how did Ayurveda find you? I think a lot of times we're searching, and I don't admire the fact that you had to go into that much pain. But pain can be an incredible motivator to get out of the paradigm of your Western way of thinking or Eastern way of thinking or your cultural way of thinking, and have to go outside that to find solvent for your pain, right? And so whether that is herbs, oils, massage, I remember when I first started telling people I was going to do an aromatherapy company, and they were, I always say people used to call me a hippie, now they call me for health. And I believe that you pioneered, beyond, before I did. And so a lot of times there's that pivotal moment where, or you look at somebody and you realize, hey, that's someone that I need to work with or understudy with. Like, me and Caroline had our pivotal moment, and we didn't know, many years ago, flying around Australia. We didn't know each other. We're doing trade shows. We're exhausted. We're on 11 planes, 13 hotels. It was a pivotal moment for me when we were sitting in the room in Australia. And honestly, I was exhausted. We had been on trade show floors for 5 months. There was 6 women that we were, and there was many dynamics of unhealthy, and you didn't know where you stood. And I remember having this kind of little meltdown. I didn't know this woman very well. And she gave me a song to listen to that had brought solace to her daughter. And there was something in that moment that made me realize, wow, we're kind of one. And then who knew we would be doing what we're doing today? But for you, what was the moment, if you remember, or what made you really dedicate, at this point, a lifetime to this study?
It's a great question, Deborah, because it was never really a conscious decision up until the point where I had spent now 9 years with Dr. Lad going to teach him. It wasn't a full 12-year apprenticeship at that point, but it was enough to have grasped the topic in its basic form. So I don't mean to present it as very complex, but because it's inclusive of all of life, then it does have certain, complexities to it. But really, we can boil it down to a very simple language of Vata, Pitta, Kapha, which means air element, fire element, and earth element. Now, those are very bare bones ideas. From there, going to the entire lifespan, from preconception to post-mortem, if you like, then the Ayurveda very much applies and helps us to understand ourselves, others, how to maximize the lifespan, because we have a certain number of breaths allocated as the gift of humanity to become a human. So that lifespan, as it unfolds, we can make or break it with our decisions. And our decisions include food decisions, sleep decisions, relationship decisions. So all this can be elevated to a place of wisdom by considering the Vata, Pitta, Kapha. We'll introduce those 3 Sanskrit words.
And you know what? I'm listening to that, the person who's not knowledgeable at all, well, a little, in that category of Ayurveda, but I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about all the big thought leaders that I know. And I've read so many personal development books. Like, I love books, so I get them and I read them. And if you look at diets, people not feeling well, so there's someone who will start a diet, a health diet, this diet, keto, non-fat, whatever. But it all comes down to just what you said there. Like, when you take all of that really and you englobe it, it's all about making small decisions on a consistent level, like small, healthy decisions. And it's crazy to think that this comes from thousands of years ago. Like, it's not new, but basically now it seems like in our modern society, we're all trying to take our piece and explain it in our own way. But that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying. It's really like it's been there forever. It's just people want to explain it in many different ways. But you explain it very well. There's a 5 elements, and I'll let you keep on talking. I just had this moment.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, these aha moments that come, whether it's a realization that I need to go deeper with this, or a realization that, I can understand and incorporate this little by little. But yeah, we have to start with basics. And so that would be the model of creation according to Ayurveda, based in the so-called Sankhya philosophy, which is the same as yoga science. So some say that Patanjali, who authored the Yoga Sutras, is the same author as Charaka, who authored the medical scriptures. Now, there's discussion about this, and it's a far bigger discussion than just that small little tip of the iceberg that we just thought about here. But it does provoke us to know ourselves better, to understand ourselves better. For example, if we look at our face, our eyes, mouth, tongue, cheeks, hair, everything will be a reflection of the post-digestive effect, whether it's physical or psycho-spiritual.
The interesting thing, oh, sorry, did you?
No, please,
No.
Deborah.
Yeah. So, and, again, I'm keeping in mind that a lot of people are at that entry stage of what is Ayurveda. And so how would one go about that? I think one of the simplest forms to explain maybe the difference, which will allows people to know what it is that when you choose to go see someone like Jaisri or one of her students or who she's recommending, there is Ayurvedic treatments. So, I've done Shirodhara, had Shirodhara, Kaya Kalpas. There's body treatments that bring your mind, body, and spirit back into balance and into the balance of your dosha, which is first decided at the entry point of your conversation. And I think one of the really welcomed differences, because I think the world's conscious enough to know we're whole, and that everything we do is everything we do, and that the relationships you have in your life make a difference on the success of your business and on the success of your health. I think we're conscious enough to know who we play with is, a reflection of us. And so, which is why I said that I love that you said that we got this juicy girl power thing going on this morning, but I just love it. But really, when I was explaining to this weekend, when I was explaining to a friend of mine's nephew, is that he was saying, so what's the difference when you go see a practitioner? I said, well, a practitioner like Jaisri, I was talking about you, would ask you, are you happy right now in your life? I went to you last week with an issue around bone density, and you know me and you know my blood type and you know kind of how I live. But it's like, so are you happy in your career? What's your work environment? What's your living environment? What's your school environment? What's your financial situation at? Are you in your dosha? Are you in your dharma? Are you happy? All of those play factor to the disease that is happening in your body, in your state, right? And so when you say that Ayurveda is all encompassing, I find that coming from a Western standpoint, that was one of the most, I was like, oh my gosh, someone who actually is going to hear me, because I have these conditions. Ironically, I had migraines too. That's what took me into health. That's interesting. But it was like, I'm not being heard. And it wasn't that my allopathic doctor wasn't listening to my migraine situation. They were. But they didn't know what was going on in my home. They didn't know what was going on in my emotional world. And it's not part of that science per se. And I think that's the relief. That's like, oh my gosh, someone's hearing all of me. And so in the, to sum it up, when you have someone of different dosha, maybe explain to us a little bit, when you have different dosha, you would give different information, or maybe share that a little bit.
Let's take this example, since you've already mentioned it, is the osteoporotic change at this age and stage in your particular prakriti and circumstance, in your constitutional, in your body. So this bone density, and it was a very early percentage. So it means that the prograde mineralization of the bones had now suspended and even gone a little retrograde. So because bones won't give much pain, and internal organs won't give much pain, only structural, joints, low back, will register pain. But when, for example, the pancreas is deteriorating, it won't register pain, right? We have to have other means of assessing. But in the case of bone density and knowing you, yes, it was just a question of nutritional counsel on which are the substances that will be most assimilable to you individually. So we selected those items just for that, without looking at the other factors. So we can, first of all, see the person's prakriti, their constitution from conception, because the Ayurveda concept is that when the child is conceived, that and whenever the soul enters, whether at the time of conception, a little before, or a long time before, or a little bit after, up to 16 weeks of the quickening, the soul can enter the body, then the constitution is already a conjunction of the circumstances that are in the best interest of the soul's evolution. This is part of the Sankhya philosophy of creation. What is life? What is humanity? What is order? And what is disorder? So all that is clearly explained, so we can find our way. So in this case, it was very easy to just select those assimilable calcium carbonate sources that will not cause harm or side effects.
Yeah. Caroline's looking, going, wow, I can see this look on her face. How are you feeling there, Caroline, as someone new to Ayurveda?
I find that, fascinating. And I think I've always been fascinated by holistic health, but I've never put in the time to actually learn it or whatever. So I guess I'm fascinated by it. I try to be as healthy as possible. I will not cut sugar, maybe one day, but I do like this whole theory that, I think that a lot of Western medicine, what happens is that we are geared to fix issues. And that's what I was telling you in a pre-interview. I find that what I'm hearing a lot with holistic health is that there is a lot of prevention. And that prevention is also work, because you need to pay attention. You can't just let yourself go. You can't eat whatever you want. And we're really in a society that, gosh, there's so many kind of different flavors and sugar, and everything that is not good for you is so good, tastes so good. But that's how we're brought up most often. So going into holistic is work and it's efforts. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not an immediate reward. And we are used to having immediate rewards. So we want to be happy, feel good. And then when we don't feel good, we go see the doctor and we're like, can I have this pill? Because that's going to help. My cholesterol is high. No, I'm not going to cut my bacon. Just give me a pill. All of these things. But and I think that, honestly, from my point of view, I'm sure there's a lot of people rolling their eyes up when we talk about all of these things. Like when you talk about bone density, where you need to have those different minerals and blah, blah, and you need to look at their circumstances and blah, blah. Like I said, these are a lot of efforts. It's costs that are not covered. It's, it's a different way of living, but people are not willing to do that because they don't see that in 20 years, you'll feel that much better. I always bug Deb about her age, but I hope I will look just as, half of as good as she is at her age, because it's in 10 years. And I'm thinking, wow, I still have 10 years of damage to do. So I better stop now. But when we look at that, she really doesn't make her age, but it's because she made all of that work through her life. And that's a big part that people don't want to do. So I think that's a bit what I would ask you. What would you tell someone who sees that as work and efforts and money? And, I know that sometimes I tell some people, you should take this vitamin. It's preventative. And they're like, are you crazy? I'm not going to spend that much money. And then I see them at the restaurant with their second bottle of wine. I'm like, okay. So, it's all a question of priorities. So what would you say to those people?
I don't think of it as work. I think of it as a question of understanding. So if we understand the why, the wherefore, how, what are the laws of nature according to the principle of cause and effect, then we would govern ourselves wisely simply because of understanding. We can't unknow something. Now, speaking to the sugar factor, because we're all subject to advertising and we have to be able to see through and discriminate through that advertising, what is in our best interest of that, if anything. So we do really have to understand first and foremost. So how can we do that individually? Fortunately, there's plenty available in print of high quality in English, even French, Polish, German, Japanese. It is now widely translated, so everyone can really find a clear understanding of their own constitution, their current vikruti or deviation from their self-balance. And a lot of that will be first and foremost through the dietary factors. Now, the dietary science of Ayurveda is based in the Shadrasa, is called from Sanskrit, which means the science of the 6 tastes. So 6 tastes are sweet taste, right? Not just refined sugar is sweet, right? Even dairy is sweet. Rice is sweet. You see, sweet taste must be there in the diet because it's anabolic. It builds new tissue. Then sour taste. Sour taste has to also be there in the form of hydrochloric acid, little lime juice, or some little sourness in the main meal. Then the salty taste. Vegetables are salty, coming from the earth, so we may not need to add extra salt. Certainly not refined salt or table salt or sodium chloride. It would be a full spectrum salt, a naturally occurring salt, a highly mineralized salt. Then fine, that is a food, a proper naturally occurring food. So sweet, sour, salty, these are the anabolic tastes. Then pungent taste is metabolic. It helps to increase metabolism, sweating, and helps to combust the food material competently. Then bitterness. Bitter taste is critical in our society for pancreatic balance, blood sugar balance, and we have very little bitter taste in our natural diet except for coffee. And coffee has other detrimental influences, notably leaching of minerals from the bones and acidifying the digestive system. So sweet, sour, salty, pungent, bitter, and astringent, the final one. And astringency is assimilated in the colon, the lost section of the GI tract, because the minerals are larger particles, so it takes longer to break them down so that they can assimilate to the bone ends. From the circulatory irrigation, the nutritional factor. So I would say just understand this word sweet and the other tastes as well, so that we can choose a balanced diet for ourselves. And I think we will want to. We won't think of it as a burden. We'll think of it as an option. And we'll perhaps compare and feel that the other person next door who may not have this understanding as yet, that they may be, less fortunate, and they should share with the person how to incorporate 6 tastes into the daily main meal.
So if you take the average person, sorry, Deb, because I know we're coming to a close, and I know that if I would be listening to this podcast, my question would be like, where do I start?
I think start with beginners books. I'll give you my website, my teacher's website. So my website is www.ayurveda-seminars.com. And my teacher's website is www.ayurveda.com. We got that very early on.
And we will put them in the links as well. So if you didn't have the time to note it, it's going to come with the podcast information. So yes, start with, reading on it and learning on it, right?
I think so. And check your local bookstore or library for books on Ayurveda, whether Perfect Health by Dr. Chopra, whether Prakriti or Ayurveda Constitution by Dr. Robert Svoboda, any of Dr. Ladd's. I think he's written 12 books now. 3 of them are textbooks. So there's tremendous amount available in print and online nowadays.
That's awesome. Thank you, Deb.
And yeah, as well, Jaisri has an incredible newsletter, I know, because I'm on it. And even though I understand Ayurveda, it's very well received. And well, she has a background in journalism, so it's actually a pleasure to read. So I would recommend with just contacting through the links that we share and to get onto there, because things like, she is going to be coming to Edmonton. You'll be coming to Edmonton very soon in September. I know you're going to share a little bit about that. One of people's last opportunities to maybe learn certain things from you, as well as please enlighten us. I mean, I am out of the moon excited about the fact that you can now go back to your event that you're going to be hosting at UBC, which is in Vancouver. And also, I have to give my hats off to you. So yes, I am 56 and I have always done my businesses belly to belly. And when this recent shift happened in the world in relationship to our health, pivoting everything that I did offline onto online, Caroline knows, was a 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 hour a day experience of new learning and pivoting and trying and website and social media and what have you. And honestly, you're like so gracious. You are going to be in our media book next year. That's all I have to say, because you really, there's going to be a book for, people that have had to pivot, that it was not part of our genetic being. You talk about coming on the planet. I'm pretty sure when I was born, I wasn't wired the way that our children are wired now to handle this new form of communication. But I want you to talk a little bit about what you have going on, how important it is for Ayurveda to be learned and received and open. And because it is not maybe necessarily the first form of medicine that people heard, and it's so needed, there's things like the college that you're looking to create that people can support and volunteer and be a part of. So let us know how we can learn more. And the last thing I'm going to say before I pass it over to you is Jaisri has been one of the most, and I think it's very congruent throughout Ayurveda, and people that study Ayurveda or teach Ayurveda, I do not find drill the information down. There is such a level of acceptance of where people are at. For example, how I accept Caroline eating her sugar. So I just know over the course of time that there's such a healthy respect. Like, people don't have to be in perfect state. They don't want to have to turn their life over to Ayurveda to be able to come and experience and have that. And there's an incredible understanding from an Ayurvedic perspective where we're not, you should, it's like, may I suggest? May you open up to maybe the possibility of sweet coming from, rice and yogurt and milks instead of, whatever it is. So there's a graciousness around this form of medicine that I've never experienced in any other form of medicine. So I've talked enough a lot, but please give us some information, Jaisri, on what you've got going on.
Okay, well, these are wonderful questions. Thank you. So coming up in September, there are 2 bodywork programs. So this is me passing on these last 35 years of clinical experience to younger therapists. And we still have spots in both classes. They're both 10-day classes, 5 days, 1 day off, and then 5 days. The first one is called Turiya Therapy, which is the applied marma therapy for mental health, for self-realization, for self-healing, for understanding through direct realization the causes in our psychospiritual matrix that filter down into the symptom. Now, the dates are September 3 to 13. There's more information on the website. Then there's consultations, which I think are already full, 3 days of consultations. The next program is the Abhyanga, the Ayurveda Oil Massage. So that is quite a technical program, mostly for people who are licensed in massage therapy or who have a background in Ayurveda and want to make their living. These are both highly sought after skills and techniques. And this is how I made my living for many years, raising my teenage children, because I came to Ayurveda as they were getting into their teenage years. So then following those 2 programs in September, the Turiya Therapy and the Abhyanga, which is September 17 to 27, I believe. And same, we're going to go in depth with technique. So there's not much beginning Ayurveda there at all. It's really for those techniques and those applied skills. Then going to next year, there is the Share Ayurveda Conference. It will be our second. And we had a Share Ayurveda Conference in 2018 where it was just a wonderful coming together of people interested in this Ayurveda. And the further developments, in 2017 was inspired to create a nonprofit foundation called the Canada Ayurveda Research and Education Foundation, the CARE Foundation. And it is destined to create programs in elder care, home care for according to Ayurveda, also to create a college for eventually creating Ayurveda physicians in Canada. And I say eventually because it's a very long-term goal. And from there, let us see, Ayurveda hopefully will be a household word as these projects unfold, but definitely most of them do call for volunteer activities, and I welcome volunteers for both projects. They're really interlinked, interconnected, especially local people that can come here to the home office and participate directly, because I'm not so much of an online gal at this age. Yes, I can manage, and people have helped me a great deal to adapt to the modern technology, but I'm by no means a techie. I'm still a clinician and a teacher of healing arts. So, it's not my specialty, but hope that gives people opportunities where they can see themselves participating.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So if I understand properly, you're nowhere close to retiring.
Retirement's not a thing in my vocabulary. I'm not inspired. I rest when I need to and want to now. That's different. So that might be my signature.
The beauty of being healthy, knowing health, knowing yourself, is that you can go until you choose to. And that's, I admire you for that. And thank you so much for all of this information. I was impressed, and I even had the feeling of like, I want to buy a book. So you did a big step here, huge step. So in my personal name, thank you so much. She did bring me a lot today, and I will let Deborah close the show because, yes, she knows I'm going to say it because she likes to have the last word.
Well, I will say pranam to you now then, Caroline. Thank you so much for your beautiful presence, and looking forward to getting to know one another better.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
So I just wanted to mention for people that that heard that she loves to see people in the home office. Jaisri is based in Surrey, if you're still in Surrey, which is close to Vancouver, British Columbia. And, I want to encourage people. I've traveled all around the world when I wanted to find resources for healing. I've done work in Yalapa. I flew there to Yalapa. I've been in Rhode Island. I've gone to many different places in the world to be able to receive help. So, there's nothing saying you can't travel to see this amazing woman, as well as the conference she's talking about at UBC, the University of British Columbia, is going to be happening in June. I absolutely going to have that on my date. And then also the funds and the volunteers that are needed to have this college, to have that availability for Canada is incredible. And so donations are welcome of time or resource, right? And as always, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for two things. One, sharing your gift with the world. Two, penetrating Caroline a little deeper so she'll stop picking on me so much. And and honestly, for being very teaching me non-judgmental attitude towards health, because it's very interesting. I have people in my life, even some of the things that I've shared with my children that are on a bit of a different path with their diet and not their ways of living. I believe that both my children live in their heart Ayurvedically. They're both beautiful people, but some of their choices around, food has reverted. And so I just look and bless. I just look and bless. But thank you so much, Jaisri. If there's anything else you'd like to share with us, please take that time now and we'll let you close the show.
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity very much, because it is my dharma, my mission, my passion to bring that word Ayurveda to as many ears as will receive it at the present time, and to establish in Canada a situation where people can exercise our right to freedom of choice in healthcare in an official way, gradually over time, so that, we want to increase the educational factor, the experiential factor, because of the benefit that, just like your friendship together, Caroline, and yours, bringing out the best in each other through affection, through appreciation, through intimacy, then these are the factors that happen. These are the fruits that result, and it does bring a happy life, no doubt. The purpose is to be happy, contented, so that we can fulfill our spiritual intention to do self-realization, God realization, purification, and alignment. So it's a very simple goal and a very simple concept. But let us take the time to really look deeply within, because each individual is whole and complete, and they are able to access this wisdom within. This is all inside us.
Oh, hallelujah. Hallelujah. Okay. Well, ladies, we'll wrap up. And for the listeners that are as enthralled as I am with each and every week of the people that come on and share so freely, advice and ideas and hope and inspiration and what have you in the world in so many amazing sectors. If you see yourself, if you have that Dharma, like Jaisri talked about, if you have a yearning to share with our audience what it is that you do, whether you've been an author, you're inspired, whatever it is, please contact us, because it's mine and Caroline's Dharma to actually get these people out from a broadcast way. I love Jaisri was sharing with someone. Yeah, Deb's really about media. And it is. I think it's one of the gifts that we have together, myself and Caroline, to really share the word of other people. So please, if you see yourself here, call us, and we'd love to have you on the show. And as always, we appreciate you subscribing, and we appreciate you sharing these videos with as many people as possible, because that's the whole idea. So thanks again for being a follower and a subscriber. Thanks, Jaisri and Caroline. And with that, we will close the show for this week.
Thank you.